everyone. Welcome. It's Friday. Hooray! Everybody celebrate. We've made it to another Friday. And we are going to finish off the week with a really fun, super cute, fairly easy wire wrapping project. This one, it's just so cute. That's all you can say about it. It's just so cute. It's so stinking cute. It is a project that I've been thinking about. Hi, Suzanne. I've been thinking about this project for a while now because I have seen this done. So let me just get started with that because I feel like I kind of need to give you like a little bit of insight. So I spend a ridiculous amount of time on Pinterest. Like, that is not a joke. I work Pinterest as part of my job. I manage the Pinterest page for Jesse James Beads. I manage the Pinterest page for Dress It Up Buttons, which is also a Jesse James company. And aside from the work that I do daily on Pinterest, like, I use Pinterest for my own personal use all the time. All the time. So a lot of times people have like a go-to social media, right? And if you're bored or you're sitting somewhere, you just pick up your phone and you open that app, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, and you just scroll. And sometimes you do it so mindlessly you don't even realize that you're doing it until you've like spent 30 minutes on whatever it is, just scrolling through. So Pinterest is one of mine. That's probably the number one app that I use other than Amazon because I am a ridiculous Amazon shopper. It's like out of control. But Pinterest is one of those that I use constantly. If I am sitting idle, I always just pick up Pinterest and I'm like scrolling through. And so there are a lot of things that come across my Pinterest feed, and I have it set up that way. If you guys are not familiar with how Pinterest works, we definitely over on Jesse James Beads are working on putting together kind of a step-by-step for Pinterest because we do have a board over on Pinterest for our Secret Stash group where you can come and post your designs that can then get shared all over social media. So check back in with us because we're gonna be working that out very soon. It's just a matter of kind of filming that, it's just a whole thing. But anyways, just stay tuned for that if you're not really familiar with Pinterest. However, Pinterest, I have my Pinterest feed set up so that it has all of my favorite things that come through. So I get like recipes that are in the kind of foods that I like. And then I get fashion that is fashion choices that I like, and jewelry making. And of course, I'm always trying to keep up with the trends, like what's new in jewelry design, what is trending, when it is trending, how it is working into fashion, and all of that. And a lot of times I will see projects come through from other designers, or I see, a design concept that has been done several different ways. That's the way this owl is. We're making it a wire wrapped owl today. And so I can't take complete credit for this, right? And I'm really upfront about that. Like, this owl project, I've seen this done probably at least 6 different ways. The outcome is pretty much the same. There's always some different spin on it. And that's kind of what I've done with it. I've taken a project that I've seen numerous different ways and I've kind of put the Sarah twist on it. And we're incorporating some really beautiful red capture chain from Silver Silk with this. So I just want you to know up front, like, this is not a completely original design concept, right? And that's okay, right? That's okay. First of all, I would totally give credit to the 6 other ways if I knew like where those came from. But that's okay. In other words, what I'm saying to you is it's okay to do that. Okay. It's a little bit different when it comes to like seed beading and bead weaving. You have to be really mindful of the patterns and who wrote the pattern, and you have to give that artist credit. That is a whole different ball game than just looking at several different examples of a project in the same kind of style and then taking it and putting your own twist on it. Okay. Don't ever feel bad about doing that. We all do it. We look at things that come through our Pinterest feed or our Facebook feed, or that we are sharing with each other, and then we take it and turn it into our own creation, okay? There's no shame in that at all. None whatsoever. So don't ever feel bad about posting a project picture and feeling like, well, this wasn't exactly my idea, right? Don't feel that way, because everything that you do, you're doing your way, right? So that's all I wanted to kind of get across about this owl, because it's an owl. Like, how many different ways can you make an owl? Probably 100 or more. Right? And you may have seen a project that looks really similar to this. That's okay. That's okay. We're doing it the Sarah way today. So there you go. Yes, Joan says, I like to see how different people do something. It makes it easier for me to adjust it to the easiest way for me. Exactly. So, you see something and you just see the picture of it, but you figure it out on your own. That's what makes it your own, right? So, anyway. Today's project, like I said, it's an owl, and it's so cute, and I'm calling it a he. I don't know. He could be a she. I don't really know a whole lot about owls. I'll be completely honest with you. They are kind of scary to me. But this one is not. This one is really cute. We're using some 18 gauge wire for this. You can use German style wire for this, or you can use artistic style wire for this. I'm using German style because that's just what I have on hand. We're going to work hard in it, so we're going to need our block. We're going to need our nylon hammer for this. And I'm using a couple of beads. I'm using a drop bead that came from the Warm Tones mix that was in this past December's Magical Mystery Box. I love this bead, and I chose this bead in particular because it is a top drilled bead, and I have been asked about top drilled beads several times. And so we're going to do it here. We're going to do the top drilled bead. I'm going to show you how to wire wrap that, and then I am going to do that some more. I'm going to try to work in some more of the top drilled beads because it just comes with practice to get that top drill wire wrapping right. So we're going to talk through it, and then I'll do it some more in some upcoming projects. I've also got 3 Swarovski beads. They're red. They're like a really deep red that kind of match this drop bead that we've got going on. And you literally can use any bead for this. I love to mix and match the beads when I'm like making the eyes and the nose. And so my Jessie James Beads mini mixes, those are my favorite for finding little beads because number one, it takes some of the guesswork out of it because they're already matched, right? The color scheme is there, so I know that I can pick the eyes and the nose and they go together even if they're different colors. So that's just a thought. If you've got mini mixes and you need some smaller beads for this project, go for your mini mixes or go straight to your Swarovski, whatever you want to use. Makes no difference either way, but mini mixes are great for this. And we're using a little bit of Rolo chain for this. You don't have to use chain. You can use an entire piece of silver silk or leather or whatever it is you're using. So this is a piece of that beautiful red capture chain that was actually included in the Travels to Toyland for Christmas. This was in Nilay's kit. And it was, of course, a kind of Christmas theme. But red works really, really well with Valentine's Day. And so that's kind of why I went with the red, because the heart, well, the body of the owl is a heart. And he already has kind of like a Valentine's theme to him. So we're using the red. He's a love owl. He's spreading, romance, whatever owls do. Owls don't spread romance. I don't know. Yeah, it would make a cute spring design with some light pastel tones. Yes, you could totally make this a spring owl. When I think of spring owls or just spring animals in general, I remember back to Bambi. Remember when everybody was Twitter-pated? I know, I'm such a weirdo. Yeah, so he's a little Twitter-pated owl, but yeah, you could use like some really beautiful pastels with this design, and he would be so pretty. And you could change up, we're using silver colored wire for this, but you could change that up and use like rose gold or copper or gold colored wire. And kind of warm up the design quite a bit. So there's a lot of different ways you can take this. You can just take this base design and really run with it. I wanted to go a step further with it and give him some more embellishments as far as adding extra beads to him, but I thought I'd keep this simple and put it out there and see what you guys do with it, because you guys are amazing about that. The project from last week, you guys have posted that picture where you've recreated it yourselves. And oh my, I'm just floored. Like, the designs that you guys have come up with are absolutely amazing. I've seen it in earrings. I've seen it in color. I have seen it in Western style. It's just amazing. You guys just make my heart so full. So I can't wait to see what you do with this owl, because I know you guys are going to come up with some amazing things and I will be so inspired. So, all right. I feel like there's one thing I'm leaving out. I remember what it is. So last week, we're going to get to the project in just a second. I promise this is just a little short side note. So last week I mentioned that I was going to be starting a jewelry making Q&A session. That's a Facebook Live, and we're going to do those on Monday afternoons. I just wanted to remind you of that again, because that's going to be starting this coming Monday. So set yourself a reminder or check back to the Sarah Ellis Designs page, because I will have an event created for that, so that it will remind you. You don't have to set your own reminder. Sorry, my chair is really uncomfortable today. I keep fidgeting. I apologize. So for those of you who didn't hear about this last week, let me just give you the quick rundown for this. So Mondays, I'm going to do 4 p.m. We're going to start at 4 p.m. on Mondays and see how it works. If that time is weird, we'll change it, but we'll start at 4 p.m. That's Eastern time. And it's not going to be project-based so much as it's going to be information-based. So what I have asked of you is, if you have jewelry making questions, whatever your questions are, please send them to my Facebook. Send me a message. You can send me a message to Sarah Ellis Designs. If we are friends on Facebook, send me a private message on Messenger. If we're not friends on Facebook, let's be friends. Right? Let's be friends. Send me a message and make sure that it says at the top, this is for Monday Q&A. Okay, just so that I know that it's not just a general question, because I do get lots of jewelry making questions. These are questions that are going to be specifically for question and answer sessions on Monday afternoons at 4 p.m. Eastern. I will take 4 or 5 of the questions and we will kind of deep dive. I've been saying that a lot, but 2020, it's all about the deep dive. We're getting down and dirty when it comes to information. We're going to deep dive on the answers to those questions. So we'll talk about the question and then we'll go down to the mat. We're not going to do a project, but I'm going to walk you step by step through whatever the answers are. If it's a question that I can't answer, we're going to look it up. We're going to use each other as a resource. We're going to use the internet as a resource, and we are going to find the answers to all of your jewelry making questions. Okay, so I'm not saying that I know everything. I certainly don't, and I am not ashamed to say that if I don't know the answer to your question, we're going to find it somewhere else, right? We're going to ask another designer. We're going to ask Google. We're going to figure it out. So if you've got questions for me, I've already got I'm making a list. I've already got a list of questions that have been sent to me. Keep the questions coming. Whatever questions you've got about jewelry making, send them to me, and we will address those on Monday afternoons. I will create a Facebook event as soon as my son gets finished with my little logo. Well, it's not really a logo, but just the event picture thing, because I wanted it to be something that was recognizable. I know, you didn't need to know that. All right, so let's get started with today's project. I think this is going to be a fun one. Well, I know it's going to be a fun one. I hope you guys love it. So let's get started with it. Okay, so to get started with this project, we are going to need a 4-inch piece of 18 gauge wire, and I forgot to grab my block. Let me get that and have it over here handy so we don't have to do a lot of stopping and starting here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the owl's body. And so we're going to be using 4 inches of 18 gauge wire. You can use bigger than 18 gauge, but I wouldn't go any smaller. Doing this with the 20 gauge wire, you're really kind of pushing it as far as the vulnerability of the shape. You're really going to have to go extra hard on the work hardening if you're using 20 gauge. So that's why I've stepped it up to the 18 gauge. And you're going to need your large bell making pliers for this. If you don't have any large bell making pliers, just anything that's going to give you I can't remember the exact gauge on this. Let's look, shall we? Never can remember. So this is going to be 5, 6, 7, 8. That's an 8mm round. So anything that's going to be 8mm round is going to give you the size that you want for this. I'm going to lift you up just a little bit here. Okay, so to get started, this is super, super easy. This part, just creating the body, is not hard at all. And this is just a basic heart shape that you can, after we do this, you can take this and use it in any of your Valentine's Day creations for your jewelry. Excuse me. So we're using the largest portion, the largest mandrel on the large bail making pliers, and we're going to start at one end. I'm grabbing the wire right at the very, very tip, and I'm just going to roll that wire into a hook shape. I'm not coming all the way down on this, right? I want to leave this nice and open. You can come down a little bit further if you want to on this, and you can always open it back up if you go too far, but you don't want to create a completely closed loop on this, okay? So now I'm going to go to the other end. I'm going to do the exact same thing going in the same direction, so this one's just going to come back towards the one that we've already made. Same thing, just rolling it down till we get this shape, okay? All right, so now I'm going to work harden this in 2 steps. And I know that that seems kind of strange, but we are. I love it. The large owl making pliers. Yes, they are owl making pliers. I love it. You guys are awesome. All right, so I'm going to tap on the circle parts of this for now. That's adorable. Not so much the length of this. We're going to work harden that in a bit, but I just want to be sure that I'm keeping the integrity of this loop shape as we manipulate this wire. So I am going to work harden it just a little bit before we move on, making sure to do both sides. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to hold this so that the loops that you've created, and they're not full loops, but the little hooks that you've created are facing downwards. And we're going to come in with our pair of chain nose pliers. And it's okay if you don't get this right in the middle. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference. But we do need to create a V shape in our wire. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in with our chain nose pliers. We're going to grab that wire. I'm going to throw it over here. We're going to grab the pliers. I'm sorry, the wire with our chain nose pliers, and we're going to start in the middle, right? But you have to take into consideration the fact that your pliers do take up some surface area. So we're going to go either direction. It makes no difference. To the right, just a tiny smidgen, or to the left, just a tiny smidgen of the center, right? And just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? So I'm going to the right just a teeny beeny bit. I'm holding that nice and tight with my pliers. Now I'm going to take my wire and start creating this V shape. Okay. Now, we're going to take it very carefully, very slowly. Once you've got that V shape started, you want to take both. You're going to use both hands for this, okay? Hold on to those loops and continue to very gently deepen the V shape. Use your fingers. You can see I'm using my first finger and my thumb down here. Now, we actually want these to cross over each other, okay? Makes no difference which direction. Right over left, left over right, doesn't matter. Just going to squeeze real slow, okay? If you do this quickly, you can make a big mess that you can't correct, okay? So go slow. Use your fingers. Pull the wire into your heart shape, right? Okay, so we've got a heart shape that also has a little loop down here at the bottom. And we're going to use this loop. That's where we're going to hang that top drilled, or that side drilled, rather. Well, it's side to side on the top. whatever, you know what I mean. Our drop bead's gonna go down here, okay? It's gonna hang from this little loop that we've created. But first and foremost, we have to have our heart shape. So we've got our heart shape created, and we went really slow so that we didn't overbend and we didn't have to make any major corrections. So now I'm gonna put this back on the block, and I am going to work harden it again. And this time I'm really kind of focusing on the V shape. Oh my gosh, Pam, please tell your niece that we are thinking about her and sending her our love. Okay. So one thing you're going to notice is that mine is kind of, when you look at it from the top, you can see it's not lined up super straight. That's okay, because we're actually going to wire wrap this little section together. So just put it back where you want it to be with your fingers, right? And then to give it some extra insurance, we're going to take some 24 gauge wire and go around this middle section about 3 or 4 times. That's actually what we're going to do next, okay? So I'm using some artistic wire for this. I normally use German style wire, but the artistic wire is going to work just as well. The difference is really just the structure of the wire itself. You know, artistic wire is a dead soft wire, so that might be easier for some of you. It might make it a little bit harder. It actually makes things a little bit harder for me because I'm used to the German style wire. But I'm using 24 gauge. You can use 24 gauge for this or 26 gauge for this. You can even go as far down as 28 if you want to, but don't go any bigger than the 24 gauge because we're working in such a small section. It really becomes cumbersome, and it just makes a big bulky mess, and it's more frustrating than it's worth, okay? So you just want to cut a small section of the 24 gauge wire. It doesn't matter how much you've got. Use some scrap pieces if you need to, and what we're going to do is we're going to wire wrap this section here that I'm touching with the wire where the 2 little heart curves come together. We're going to wrap around that section about 3 or 4 times just to kind of ensure that we keep that heart shape, and it is going to add a little bit of decoration to this as well. So I've just gone through the loops. Now I'm going to come back up through, and you can see I've got a tail over here that I'm holding with my thumb. Okay. And you can squeeze that together with your fingers. Make that wire do what you want it to do. Don't get frustrated with it. Go slow. Just take that tail end, going through. All right, so I'm going down one side and up the other side. Okay, hold on. So it also wants to twist a little bit as you're working. That's okay. Come in with your pliers and just force it back apart. Okay, it doesn't have to. Don't let it frustrate you. That wire is going to want to do what that wire wants to do, but you're the boss here, right? So I just flattened it down with my chain nose pliers. That's 3 wraps. I'm going to go one more time. I'm going to use the bottom wire, my tail, for this. Just because I feel like that will kind of help tighten things up a little bit. Don't be afraid to use your pliers to guide your wire around as well. Okay, I go down through, and I want both of these wires to finish on the back. So this one is on the back. I just need to take this top wire and push it through. So now it'll be on the back as well. Okay, so I'm just going to come in with my cutter tool and trim that off. Jessica. So Jessica has a question. Jessica wants to know if this will be on YouTube later. Where can she find it later? You can actually find this right here on Sarah Ellis Designs. The video after this is over, I will hit the post button, and what the post button does is that we'll leave this video here to live on in infamy for as many times as you want to watch it at your own time, in your own schedule. And I do upload all of my videos to YouTube, but I don't do it immediately. I let them kind of sit on Facebook for a few weeks before I put them over on YouTube. And if I'm completely honest with you, it's just because I forget. So for no other reason than I am very scatterbrained sometimes and I forget. So I'm coming in and I'm just flattening that wire with my nylon jaw pliers just so that I don't make any marks on it. You can use your chain nose pliers if you want to. Just kind of squeezing those wire wraps up, like making them nice and tight, and then giving them a good squeeze with my nylon jaw pliers. That's going to help work harden them. It's also going to help to flatten it down. So we have our little body of our owl, and this is ready for a bead embellishment. I'm going to sit this to the side and we are going to work on the eyes. And this part I'm actually going to do a practice piece first, and then we will do the actual piece. Okay, so for this, you're also going to need another piece of 18 gauge wire, and I've got a long piece here. This is way more wire than you need. You're really only going to need probably about 4 inches for this as well. So this really doesn't take a whole lot of wire to do. However, this is my real piece, and I'm not ready to do the real work yet. I'm going to do a practice on a piece, and there's a reason why. So I'm going to pull in a piece. I think this is just a scrap piece of 20 gauge that I had. Really doesn't matter. There's a reason why we're going to do this, because I want to show you 2 things. And I know, guys, I'm sorry. It does keeps refocusing for me too, and I'm not real sure what it is. A lot of times it has to do with the lighting. I can't seem to get the sweet spot. Let me pull you down just a little bit. That might help too. I wish that I had like my own focus button on this, so I apologize. All right, so what we're gonna do, let's see if we got a good top shot there. There's enough room there, right? Okay. So what we're gonna do is we, again, are gonna use our owl making pliers. These are our bell making pliers. We're using the larger mandrel of the bell making pliers, and we're gonna make 2 loops, okay? And we want these loops to be fairly close together, but not right next to each other. Let me show you the first thing that you're going to do when you pick up your bell making pliers to make your 2 loops. Let me show you what you're going to do, and I'll show you why this is not what I want. All right, so I've got the wire, and actually we need to come down on the wire so that we've got enough wire for his little fuzzy ear thing that I don't even know what you call it. I'm not sure that it's even an ear, but the little horns for your owl, right? Yes, owls have horns. And we're going to come down about 1.5 inches, 2 inches on the wire, and we're going to turn our first loop, right? So that's easy, no problem. Everybody can turn a loop, no problem. Then we're going to need to come over, and we don't want the mandrel to be touching the loop that we already made. We do want there to be a little bit of space there. Now, your very first inclination is to go in the same direction, right? Okay, but I want you to look at the wire. Look at the top of the wire and notice it looks like bicycle wheels, right? The wire is going this direction and then this direction, okay? So what happens is it puts the loop that's on the right-handed side out just a teeny beeny bit. I'm talking just a smidgen forward, right? There's no way around it. That's just because of the way the wire is going, right? And it doesn't give you a nice straight section above both of the loops. So we're not going to do it this way. I'm showing you, this is my don't do it this way, right? This is what you're going to be inclined to do. Don't. So snip this off and let's try again. Let me show you what you do want. So what the movement that we want, okay, we're going to do the first loop just like we would any loop, okay, makes no difference, right? Well, we've got a really short piece. Let's find us another good long piece of wire to do this with. Okay, I have lots of scraps. Okay, so again, we're going to come down on the wire, leave ourselves a little bit of a tail. We're going to turn that first loop, makes no difference how that loop is going, okay? Take it out, take it off the tool, look at it really well. And now we want to do the next loop, but instead of going in the exact same direction, this is a little bit awkward. Okay, we've come down just a smidgen, so there is some space between the two loops, right? There's space between our eyeballs. They're not right next to each other. We don't want our owl to look cross-eyed. So now this time, I'm going to take the wire. I'm turning the wire instead of the tool because it just makes it a little bit easier for me. Now, we want this wire here to go behind that first loop that we made. Okay. See the placement of that wire? Now we have to take it off of the tool and kind of realign and go ahead and guide that wire around. And it ended up putting my two little eyes together, so separate them back out. But now look at what you have on the top. Now, instead of looking like bicycle wheels, it looks like sunglasses, right? This looks more like eyes. So we have a straight section going across the top. That's going to give us the opportunity to do some wire wrapping here, which we are going to do. So now we've got a nice straight section of wire across the top where we can wire wrap this to the back, okay? And it just looks more like a set of eyes than it does bicycle wheels. And the placement on the loops, when you look at it from the side, these are side by side. One of them is not, I have to do squeeze that down a little bit, but one of them is not any further forward than the other. And once you work harden them, they will line up really, really nicely, okay? So take that into consideration when you're making loops for projects. A lot of times you just want to get in there and do the loops and you go the same direction over and over and over again. That's fine, but it kind of creates a curve, and it also makes each loop that you do next in the line come up just a tiny, tiny bit. So in order to keep your loops nice and even as far as where they're sitting, go behind with your next loop, okay? I'm going to show it to you again because this was just the practice piece, okay? We've actually got more room on the practice piece. Let's do one more on the practice piece and then we'll go to the actual piece to do it. Because I need to practice with it too. Okay, so I've come down on the wire, giving myself a tail. I don't really even need a tail for the practice piece, but turning the tool, giving myself the first loop, okay? Makes no difference what direction you go. I'm gonna come over just a tiny bit for that next loop, giving myself some room between the two, okay? This time I'm holding the tool stationary and I'm guiding the wire just so that I make sure that I'm going in the direction that I want to go. Taking the tail end of that wire, and this time we're going behind the first loop that we made. Don't get caught up on the tail here. Okay, so now you can see the placement of that wire. I'm gonna adjust my grip with my pliers, open them up, bring that tail on around, and then close it back. Go ahead and guide that wire all the way around and pull them apart just a bit so that you've got that space, and you can see you've got that nice straight line across the top. That's what we want, okay? All right, so now we've done that practice piece. Let's do it on the real piece so we can take it and put it on our owl. Again, we're going to come down on the wire, giving yourself some room here, okay? And we will cut some of that off, so it doesn't matter a whole lot. Going to take it and wrap our loop. I'm using the 18 gauge wire for this, just like with the body, okay? Oh, I'm bleeding. There's our first loop, okay? Now I'm going to come back to the tool, coming down a little further. I'm going to turn it this direction so I can really get a good look on it, okay? Holding it in the pliers. And now I'm going to use my right hand to guide that wire around the mandrel of the bell making pliers, okay? You can see where that wire came behind this first loop. Adjust my grip just a little bit and go ahead and guide that wire on around. And now we have our eyes. Okay, and we've got a nice space here. We've got enough space to put in a small little Swarovski bicone. Okay, yes, Kathy, we made granny glasses out of our wire. That's exactly what we did. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to cut some of our wire off And we want to, let's see, let's bring in our ruler. We want both sides of our wire here to be the same length. Excuse me. And this can be as long or as short as you want it to be. I'm going to start my measurement right on the edge of that curve on our loop, okay? And I'm going to come down, let's see, I'm going to give myself, how much wire do we want? Let's take it, I want to go a full inch. Let's go 3/4. No, you know what? Yeah, okay, that's okay. We'll go 3/4. 3/4 of an inch, trim that wire off, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side so that they both match. They're both the same length. Come in at 3/4 and trim it off. Okay. Please ignore my DNA. Permanently colored the wire with, yeah. Okay, so this is what we have. Now what we want to do, before we do any of the little loopy-doos that are on the ends of this, we want to come in and do a little bit of wire wrapping here at the top. And so we're going to need another piece of 24 gauge wire. And again, it doesn't have to be a big piece, and you can use a smaller gauge for this if you want to. All we're doing is just wire wrapping this straight wire to the back wire. This is going to give it some decoration, and it's also going to help to make sure that those pieces don't come up, separate. And you know what? Let's work hard on this first. I almost forgot. So very carefully put this on the block, and I recommend putting the loops on the block, but not the wire, like the long section, just so that the loops will lay flat. Just be easy as you're work hardening the outer edges of your loops here. So, James, hi James. James got a question for me. Do you like the bell making pliers better than the step pliers for wire work? All right, so you want, let me give you my honest to goodness answer. My honest answer to this question is the stepped bell making pliers are my favorite pliers on the planet. I love them. Let me show them to you guys for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. So these are the bell making pliers. So you have the option of so many different sizes. And the largest bell on here, I think it's bigger than the 8. Let's see. This is that's a 9. So you can make as big as a 9 loop on it. I love these. Absolutely adore these. And the only reason I'm not using them right now, and I'm using this instead, is because we're out of stock. So if I'm being completely honest with you, it's just because I don't want to show you a tool that I absolutely love and then you go to try to buy it and you can't because it's out of stock. At the moment, at least, over on Jesse James Beads, this guy is out of stock, but we will be restocking him probably in February, so just stay tuned for that. But yes, you're getting my honest answer here. So I'm using this one just because I do love it. I use it for everything, but at the moment, it's because this is what's available, and I don't want you to try to shop for something that you can't buy. So there you go. All right. All right. Me too, Suzanne. I love the stepped bell making pliers. I use them for everything, and I've got a really fun project using them, and I've been saving it and waiting and waiting. I can't wait to show it to you guys. Okay, so again, we've got a small piece of 24 gauge wire. We're going to take this and we just want to wire wrap through the loop just over these 2 top little sections of wire here. I'm just going to go about 3 times. This is just going to give me some added insurance, and it really just kind of brings that wire wrapping into that element into the design in some more places. Use your pliers, guys. Don't be afraid of them. You don't have to do everything with your fingers. You really, really don't. And use both sides of your wire. If you're using a little bit longer piece of wire than you normally would use, then neither one of them is a tail. They can both be your working ends. So what I want is I just want about 4 wraps right up at the top over the center of the eye. Okay, I want those 2 wraps to end on the back so that we can trim those off and try to make those as flush as you can so that they don't stick out. Run your finger across them. Make sure that you don't have anything poking out. If you do, come in with your pliers and make it lay down for you so that it doesn't cut you. All right, so there's one. We're going to do the other one. Another little short piece of our 24 gauge wire. Always cut more than I need. I'm so bad at that. All right, same thing, just over on the other eye. We're going to wrap around about 4 times. Okay, coming through. Hey James, are you going to be in Tucson coming up? I don't know if you and the gang are going to be there. Let me know. I would love to see you guys. Sarah and I will be teaching classes on Tuesday, February 4th. For those of you who are interested, you can still get tickets to that. And then Sarah, James, and I will be shopping, doing a little shopping and going around and spending some time with all of our jewelry making friends. All right, so here is the wire wrapping on the other side just to make it match. I want those both to end on the back. Okay. And trim that off. Okay. All right, so now we're ready to add the beads to this. And this part, don't let this frustrate you. Go slow. This is, it's not hard. It's just when you're working in a small space, again, using the 24 gauge wire, if it's easier for you to use a 26 gauge wire for this, that's okay. That's okay. Oh, James, that's so sad. He says this is the first year in 20 years that Soft Flex won't be in Tucson. I hate that. I was looking forward to seeing you guys. All right. So we're going to start on either side. It makes no difference. Cut yourself a longer piece of 24 gauge wire this time because we're going to do the wire wrapping on the outer edge, add a bead, wire wrap between the two, add another bead, and then wire wrap. So you do need a little bit longer of a piece than you do for the top here. All right, so I'm going to start over here on the left, which I'm going to hold it up and down, so it really makes no difference. But I do want to wire wrap around this outer edge of the eye about 4 times. And I'm going to use my pliers. You can see where that first wrap is always an ugly wrap. So squeeze it in with your pliers. Okay. Coming to the back, I'm going to trim that off. Okay. All right, so now my wire is running across the front, and it doesn't matter. If yours is going towards the back, it's totally fine. It really makes no difference. The most important thing is that it's running across the middle portion of your eye. And we're going to thread on one of our small Swarovski rounds. You can use whatever round bead you want to. About a 4mm or a 5mm bead will fit here. A 6mm bead will fit, but it's really going to fill up the entire eye, and it doesn't give you a whole lot of movement. I really like the movement, so that's why I use a smaller bead. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire wrap, but I'm going to wire wrap across both of these, right? Just to kind of make sort of the bridge of the nose, if you will. So going across and into the next eye, okay? And then I'm going to come up through the first eye. And this is why I say give yourself some extra grace here. Be patient with yourself and go slow, because you are working in a really kind of tight space with, it is a small gauge wire, but it does have a tendency to want to behave like a larger gauge wire when you're working in such a small space. Okay, so there is one of the wraps that actually turned into 2 when you get all the way around again. Same thing. going down through the second eye. Okay, and then back. Just flipping the piece over. It makes it just a little bit easier for me to kind of guide that wire and hold it down with my finger to make it go where I want it to go. Okay. Coming back around here to the front. All right, so I'll line that up a bit, kind of manipulate that wire with my pliers to make it go where I want it to go. And so now I have 3 wraps going across the center, and I am going to add my second bead. Okay, so now this one is going to go over here on the other eye, and now I'm just going to wire wrap on this side as well. See how the wire wraps are, they start here and then go upwards instead of starting and going downwards? Want those to match over here on the other side as well. So I'm going to come up and we're doing those wire wraps going upwards just so they match. Just those little details like that, that it really won't matter for a customer, but it might make you crazy if they're not even. I'm one of those people. I want it all to be as even as possible. Okay, so trim that off. And we have our little eyes for our owl. And this one wire right here has a little bit of a bend in it. Try to straighten that out as best as I can. Give it a little squeeze. Okay. So this is ready for a nose now. And now we're working in an even smaller space. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to push the eyes up just a bit. We'll bring them back down after we put the nose on, but you want to give yourself some room. So we're actually going to be working in this space right here. So this is a very, very small space. So again, if a 26 gauge is easier for you to use than the 24 for this small little space here, definitely go for it. Okay, so yes, you guys, welcome Danielle. So Danielle is my partner in crime over at Jesse James Beads. Danielle and I have, we work together quite a bit. Sometimes I feel like I drive Danielle absolutely crazy. I worried in the beginning that Danielle was like, who is this crazy girl? But I love Danielle. She is such a sweetheart and very, very knowledgeable and so, so helpful. So hello to Danielle. She is standing in for Sarah. All right, so we're going to wire wrap right here. And this is such a small, small space. And what I want is, I want the wire wraps to go this direction, not this direction, because we don't really have, I know I'm pointing with this wire. I hope you can see what I'm talking about. I want, like over here, we had the wire wraps going up, right? So focus on over here where you want these wire wraps to go. Keep in mind, there are wire wraps here, so there's not a whole lot of room here. So we want those wire wraps to be kind of more down this direction, coming back out. So I'm going to put my wire in, and I'm giving myself a big tail here, okay? Just kind of holding that out of the way. And let's see, how do I want this to go? Let's try to figure out what the easiest way to hold this so you can see. That'll work. All right, so I'm just going to take my tail end of my wire. You can see it's hooked through right here. This is my tail. I'm not doing anything with it. And then I'm going to take this end and do the wire wrapping. Just want to get that first anchor in there. Okay. Going down through, wrapping around. Crazy is good. And Danielle definitely knows I'm crazy. I get really worked up over the silliest things, my mistakes. All right, so I was seriously, you guys, losing my mind over Pinterest earlier this week, and Danielle was there to save the day, of course. All right, so there are our wire wraps on the bottom, and you can see where this wire, well, maybe you can, maybe you can't. I didn't realize where I was. It's coming out the top, right? And kind of going towards the middle here. We've got our tail back here on the back. We're going to trim this off. Okay. Now we're going to add a little bicone to this, and I'm using red just to kind of keep all that red going. This is definitely a Valentine's owl. And I want that bicone to fall in the center. And in order to make it fall where I want it to fall, you do kind of have to manipulate that wire a bit to get the shape that you want, right? Okay, I'm like way up here. I'm so sorry. I wish I could hear you guys yelling at me. Like, Sarah, we can't see. All right, so we want that little bicone to be placed in the middle. And normally when I'm wire wrapping, I always tell you to follow the path of the wire. See how the wire is coming up over the top of the eye here, this wire that is creating the eye. For this in particular, we're not going to follow the path of the wire. So the natural path would be to come to the back, right, of the eye on the other side. But what I want is I really want that wire to be coming across the surface. So we're going to ignore the natural flow of the wire and come across the top. And the only reason is just a design choice, right? It has really nothing to do with function. So going across the top of the wire, I'm going to make my wire wraps, and then I'm going to kind of tweak this just a little bit with my pliers so that I can get the placement of the bead and the wire. Well, I'll wait and do that after I get these wraps in. So now I'm just going to do the mirror image of the wire wraps on the other side over here on this side, and use your pliers to squeeze the wire wraps together so that their placement is good. And all right, so coming to the back, trimming that off. Now I'm coming back to the front, and I really want to push that wire into the shape that I want it to, because you can see it's not flush. There is a tiny, tiny little bit of wire on either side of your bicone. And if you'll kind of just pull down on the bicone, it'll help to put that wire at kind of a drape shape. You know, you're getting that nice curve in the wire so that it looks more natural. It doesn't look like it was kind of forced into the shape that you want it to go. All right, so there are our eyes. Here is our body. We're almost done, you guys. We're just going to add some little finishing touches to this. We're going to attach these together. We're going to give him some little horns up here at the top. He's a horned owl. And then we're going to wire wrap this guy on the bottom. So let's do the little extra embellishments up here at the top. So I'm just going to take my round nose pliers, and I'm just grabbing that wire right at the tip. I'm going to roll back around here to create a little loop on that side, and we're going to do the same thing over here on the other side. Grabbing that wire, rolling it back to create another little loop. Okay, now I don't want these going straight out because then he kind of looks like a longhorn steer. I don't like that look, so I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers or your flat nose pliers, and I'm just going to kind of angle that wire up just slightly, right? Just a tiny, tiny bit. That's what's going to make the difference in the design. Just a tiny little bend. So now he has his little horns for the top. One of them looks a little bit longer than the other. I don't know, it might just be me. I measured them, so they should be pretty darn close. All right, so that part is ready to go. Now we are going to come down here to the bottom, and actually let's go ahead and attach the eyes to the body, and we're just going to use 6mm jump rings to do that. So just open up a 6mm jump ring, attach it to the heart, and then hook it up here on one of the eyes. Close that back, and we're just going to do the same thing on the other side to attach. All right, so there is the owl and his little body. He's so cute. It's so good. It's so good. Okay, so now let's put a little extra down here on the bottom. And to do that, we're going to use a drop bead that is drilled side to side right up here at the top. Okay, and I'm going to use 24 gauge wire for this. You can use 22 gauge wire for this if you want to, but I'm using 24 just because it just kind of ties into the rest. There's actually no 22 gauge wire in this entire piece, which is really weird for me. So yeah, I think you're right. I think the right horn is bent a little bit higher. We'll fix him here in a minute. All right, so I've got a piece of 24 gauge wire. I've given myself plenty to work with. This is more than you need. You're really only going to need about 3 inches for this. And I'm going to thread the bead on, kind of bring it to the middle. It doesn't have to be exact. There's no, you know, there's no exact formula for this. I'm going to move this though, so hopefully the camera can focus better. All right, so very slowly, I'm going to take one side of the wire, doesn't matter which side you start with, and I'm just going to bring it up at an angle. And really and truly, it's not an angle. It's following the surface of the bead because the bead is tapered, right? And so that's just naturally going to make that wire sit at an angle, okay? Instead of straight up and down. Don't go with straight up and down because that's an unnatural shape for this shape of bead. All right, so I flipped it over in my hand and I'm going to do the same thing over here, just guiding that wire as it is exiting the bead to go along the surface of the wire that's naturally tapered down, so it's going to go at an opposite angle as the wire on the other side. So now when you hold it up and you look at it, you have the 2 wires crossing. You've got yourself a little triangle shape here at the top. There's still movement, which is what you want. You don't want to wire wrap this and make that cross so tight up against the very tip of this bead because you will risk cracking that bead, okay? There's only so much area here. So you really want to be careful and be really, really soft and gentle with your top drilled beads like this, okay? Because the number one thing that happens is they get cracked. Okay, so now you want to come in with your chain nose pliers and pick a wire. I usually go with the wire that's coming towards the back, and right at the crisscross here, see if you can see, I'm grabbing that wire with the very, very tip of my pliers. I'm going to bend it straight up and down, okay? Now with the other wire, I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to bend it out to the side, okay? So now we have a right angle going on with our 2 tails of the wire. Okay, now this is the part that drives everybody crazy. Everybody gets to this point and they're good to go, but then the next couple of steps throw everybody off. So there's a couple things you can do here. You can come in with your bent chain nose pliers and very carefully grab that triangle so that now that wire that's coming off in the direction going to the right is sitting right over the top of your pliers. Okay, you see where the placement of that wire is, okay? This is going to help ensure that you don't destroy this shape, this triangle shape above the top of your bead. And you want to put it in your other hand, come in and wire wrap, and I like to just wire wrap once, which actually turns into 2 wraps, right? Okay. Then I come to the back and trim this off. And part of the reason that I don't continue on up is because I'm already going to have to make more wire wraps coming from this direction. And if you don't, then you end up with a section of wire wraps that's this big. I don't like that. I don't want my wire wraps to take over and that be what you see instead of the bead. So I like to keep the wire wraps down here on the bottom just once, 1.5, whatever functionally will attach that together so that it won't come undone, right? Trim that off. Now you're just going to treat it like you would a bead. Come in with your chain nose pliers, grab right above that last wrap that you made, bend the wire 90 degrees, okay? Now you're going to come in with your round nose pliers, up and over, adjust your grip, coming on around, okay? switching hands, and now I'm going to wire wrap right down to the wire wraps that we already made. And you can clean those up with your pliers. Okay. And when the wire wraps meet, first and foremost, they're not going to be perfect. They absolutely 110%, I cannot stress this enough, it's not going to be perfect. And that's because you're working from two different directions, right? You're working wire wraps from the bottom up and then wire wraps from the top down, and they have to meet in the middle. And no matter what you do to them, they're not going to be perfect, and they want to crisscross each other where you cut off on the back. It's okay. You're going to have to learn to accept, and I'm talking to myself here, you have to learn how to accept that it's just no matter what you do. Sometimes you might get lucky and it just works out and it just looks beautiful, like a seamless wire wrap. Mine never do. And so I've really kind of had to accept the fact that if you get down on it with a microscope or a magnifying glass, another jewelry maker that is looking that close, they're going to be like, oh, I see. But they have the exact same problem. Don't let them tell you otherwise. But just from a jewelry wearing standpoint, nobody's ever going to be able to tell. So it's totally okay. It's a small little, just where the two wires meet. It's really ugly on the back. So be sure that it is, all your ugly is on the back, and that what's front facing is as seamless as possible. But don't stress over it. Don't get caught up in whether or not it is perfect or not. It's one of those things that will absolutely make you crazy. And just don't go there. It's okay. When it comes to like painting, let me see. I need a 4mm jump ring. I thought I had one. I do. So when it comes to painting, I know it's weird to kind of connect the two things, but my mom used to paint when I was a kid, and both of my parents were very artistic, and my mom would make mistakes in her paintings and she would get really irritated by it. And somebody told her one time that the little mistakes, that's where the spirit of the piece lives. And so I've kind of taken that into my jewelry making as well. The little mistakes that happen that only I know are there, nobody else is going to see them. This 4mm jump ring, by the way, looped that through on the top, and I'm going to loop it to this little loop on the bottom. The little mistakes, that's where the spirit of the piece lives, right? That's where your creativity lives. That's where whatever you want to call it. It's the creative mojo. That's where the creation lives, right? For the piece. So I accept all those little things in the pieces. All right, so we've got our drop bead down here on the bottom. It's attached with a 4mm jump ring that is small and doesn't take over. Use a 6mm jump ring here, that's fine, but you are going to be adding some length here, and it really elongates the body quite a bit, so you might want to use a 4mm instead. This guy is bent up just a tiny bit too much, so yeah, went ahead and bent him back down. Now, what we're going to do is we are just going to put on two 6mm jump rings through these little loops on the horns, and close that back. We're going to use the little loops on the horns with our silver silk, our jump rings on those loops. We're going to run the silver silk through there. Okay, so I've got a piece of my silver silk, and it's a short little piece. I've already put the end cap on one side. I need to put the end cap on the other side, but I want to run it through these jump rings first. So I'm just going to thread that through one and thread it through the other. Okay. So now when he hangs, he's going to hang like this instead of all wonky. And I'm going to come in with my silver silk end cap, pop that on. I want to get at least 2 of the balls in that ball chain that's on the inside. And I'm going to use my nylon jaw pliers to close that. And now I'm going to add, because my silver silk piece is kind of short, I'm just going to add some Rolo chain to the back of this. The silver silk is what's going to be on the front. So the chain is really going to kind of start at your shoulders. So it's not necessarily part of the design. You see what I'm saying? It's more just functionality. You can use an entire piece of silver silk for this if you wanted to. I'm just using jump rings to thread this on to the end of a piece of chain. The chain has been hooked together with a lobster clasp. I've already done all that just because I feel like that's kind of, you guys have seen that a million times, so it's okay to save those steps. Okay, thread that on, and he's done. We have a beautiful little owl, and he's perfect for Valentine's Day, using one of the beautiful drop beads from the warm tones from our magical mystery box from Jesse James Beads, and these little Swarovski beads that also came out of my Jesse James stash. I'm not sure what they were in, but you guys know you've got a huge bead stash. You could do this with any bead color. You could do this with any silver silk, any wire color. Really could change this up a bit. You could make him all pastel for spring. It would be really beautiful in like a rose gold wire with some pastel beads. I think that would be pretty. He would even work in the fall with gold and browns and coppers. So such a cute little owl. I'm going to put it on a bust so you guys can see him hanging. He's just so cutie patootie. And then I will let you guys get on with your day. All right. Hi, whoa, blinding you guys, so sorry. All right, so I have put him on the bust here so you can see what he looks like while he's hanging. Isn't he cute? And he's so whimsical. The the movement in the eyes, to me, it makes it just really, really fun. Like, he's not super serious, right? He's fun, he's whimsical, he's, you know, he's an owl. And right, owls, their eyes are all crazy, and I'm not even kidding. I'm kind of afraid of owls. Not small ones, but like large owls, you know, the ones with the flat faces. Oh, those are terrifying. But this guy is not. This guy is super, super cute. He works for Valentine's Day because his body is a heart. But if you use him in other parts of the year, if you use him in the fall or whatever, the heart kind of disappears, right? We're seeing the heart now because I've said it's a heart, it's Valentine's Day, but adding the addition of some smaller beads wire wrapped on the outer edges here, which is where I wanted to take this, but I thought, oh my gosh, this will be a 2-hour project. Let's not do that. But you could wire wrap some extra beads to the outside edge to give him some plumage, if you will. That kind of takes away from the heart and makes it less heart and more body. So there's a lot of little different things that you can do with this basic design to take it to a different place if you want to. He doesn't have to be just for Valentine's Day, but he's just so darn cute. He's so, so cute. So that is it for me, you guys. I hope you have enjoyed this project. I cannot wait to see all of the little owls that you guys make. I know that you will, and I know that somebody out there, maybe more than one of you, is going to take the owl and turn him into something else. Like you're going to make him a deer, or you're going to make him a frog, or you're going to make him something totally different, and I know it's going to be wonderful. So post your pictures, post them over on the Secret Stash group, post them on your own timeline, just post them wherever so we can all see them. Stick them over on the Secret Stash board on Pinterest. That's the #1 place to put things, you guys. If you need help getting there, let me know. I'll put you there so that we can get all of your beautiful creations on the Secret Stash board, because then they get pinned in other places, and before you know it, they've been seen by thousands of people. Pinterest is great for that. So, all right, you guys have, sorry, I'm trying to throw you off here. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend. I will be back with you next week. We will be on Jesse James Beads at 11 a.m. and then you can catch me again here on Fridays at 1 p.m. for another Sarah Ellis Designs design. And if you are interested in Tucson, definitely check the links in the comments, because Danielle had posted the links where you can get your tickets for Tucson. If you need help with travel or things like that, we can try to put together a travel plan for you and make it as affordable as possible, because we want everybody to come out and have a great time with us while we are in Tucson. There is still time to get those tickets. So send us a message. Go grab your ticket over on Jesse James Beads, and let's have an amazing event in Tucson. In the meantime, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys again next week. Bye, guys.